Good morning, everyone. How are we doing this morning? Wonderful. Great. Who is planning to go for the Iowa State Fair later? Hands up.
Tomorrow.
I'm good. I'm planning to go tomorrow because it's the east side of it, and I do live on the east side of Des Moines. I live in Des Moines for the last 3 years, and I have never been a fair. Sorry. But this year, my friend at work said, like, this is not acceptable. We're taking you. So I'm going on the east side tonight, and wish me luck. I'm sure I'm going to have an awesome time. My name is Babic, and I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Credit Union Foundation. I'm here with my lovely colleagues, Jaimie Miller and Grace McKenna. You heard before Adam talking about the Iowa Credit Union Foundation. We are a philanthropic arm of the Iowa Credit Union and the philanthropic arm of the Iowa Credit Union League. Jaimie serves as Vice President of the Iowa Credit Union League. She will talk more about her role in the league a little bit later today. Our mission, as Adam explained to all of you, is led by the credit union philosophy of people helping people, and we try to champion and we do our best to champion financial well-being for all here in the state of Iowa. And we do that through several different ways. We do that through investing the donor dollars that we fundraise very hardly during the years in the program, such as financial skills for smart living that you have been part of or will be part of at the University of Northern Iowa. So invest in financial education. We also invest in different programs and initiatives in the communities across Iowa that are mission aligned with all of us, or our mission. We educate. One way how we spearhead our mission is we educate. So we try to talk about the financial well-being tool. We support the credit union mission in their financial literacy effort. We support the financial literacy effort across the state of Iowa and provide the resources and tools for our educators such as yourselves. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you, but also to the communities in our state. We collaborate in order to fulfill and put our mission in action, and we do that in a series of ways with community organizations, with strategic partners, with the state, institutions and authorities, both on the state and federal level, but also nationally, in order to champion our mission and do it right. One of the ways that when I talk about the financial literacy and financial education and financial well-being, I just want to take a pause and make sure that when we talk about the financial well-being, we are not just talking about the financial component of the financial well-being. Because financial well-being means so much more. It's a one holistic approach that we are taking, meaning like it's not just the position or the state of your checking or saving account in the bank. It's the ability for you to pursue education. It's the ability for you to have a home. It's the ability for individuals to build wealth. It's the transportation issue. It's the access to health care. It's the holistic approach in how we are approaching financial well-being. So when they saw us working with the Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence, where we support the survivors of domestic violence, they're like, how are you supporting this? Or why are you supporting affordable housing? Or why are you here over the table when we talk about the child care? All these aspects and all these policy areas is what contributes to your financial well-being, what contributes to individual financial well-being, and that's why we are supporting here and supporting that and championing that across the state of Iowa and even further. And then the last part how we do that is we are advocating. So you will see us in the State House together with the representatives of the Iowa Credit Union League. You will see us in the different panels and platforms and advocating for the mission-aligned initiatives, such as affordable housing, such as child care, or any other financial literacy or any other mission-aligned initiatives. And here today, when Jen asked us to do this presentation, I was like, seriously, teachers? I'm a little afraid, so please, like, you want us to present to the teachers? They know more than us. But Jaimie and I here with you today is going to talk a little bit about the good habits for building a good credit, and why is this important? And I'm sure I'm going to learn so much more from you you, as I hope we will provide some more information for you and give you some framework or give you some additional data and tools for you to guide this conversation with the students in the classrooms. And that's what we will do. I don't think that, I always say when people are asking me, like, do you know this? It's like, I might not, but I know where to find it, or I know who knows. So in order for us to connect you with the resources and to provide you some different tools to deliver this conversation and to make sure that we set the students on the path for success. So bear with us today, and I do speak fast, so I'll try my best to do it in a slower manner this time. And as you can probably notice, English is not my first language, so I'll try my best not to burst into my native language when I answer some question or become anxious because I'm speaking in front of the teachers today. Jaimie, anything to add?
You know, I would say one of the things that we've learned in the credit union space with our financial coaching programs is if you can live it yourself, you can teach it. So really encourage you to think about not just how would this apply to students in the classroom, but how does this apply to you personally? Students connect, people connect with people. Students will connect with your authentic perspectives, but if it is, kind of like Adam said, intangible, inauthentic, it's not going to totally fit with students and how they're taking the concepts back home.
Yeah, thank you. And you will hear me and Jaimie talk, and we will talk about any of the issues that you will see on the screen. We also have a small game for all of you and some of the gifts who win the game, so stay tuned.
We have to have prizes.
Yes, absolutely, incentives. You will hear us talk about how this relates to myself, or what did I do, or how I combat that in a certain situation, or what I do in my personal life in order to build credit. So just a very short, what are we going to cover today during this session? It's just like, starting with the definition of the terms. I am a nerd, so I always like to start like, let's get back and see like how we define terms in order not to make sure that we talk about the correct things. Why it's important to have credit and build credit, and as someone who is living in the United States for the last 3 years, trust me, this is something that I'm learning through my daily life, and I learned a lot in preparation for this session in my work as well. How to build a credit. We will share with you some of the tips how to maintain a good credit, and we will share our own experiences and also give you some tools how you can, in a relatable way, talk with the students about that. When there is also tips how to maintain credit, and also like what to not do, what are do's and what are don'ts in this particular space. And then we will share some of the ways how you can, which I'm sure you all know and all do, but just for the, it will stay recorded, it will stay with you, and you can also have the access to the presentation, how to get the credit report, and how to make sure that everyone has it. So as I said, I am a little bit of a nerd, an overachiever, so we will start with the definition of terms. And I know that looking at the screen, you know what are the definitions both of the credit score and the credit reports. And living in the United States probably all your life, you know this much better than me. But when I try to explain what is the credit score, and when somebody asks me like, Anna, what is your credit score? I was like, I know it's very thin because I moved here in the last 3 years, 3 years ago. So when I got a job and when they did background check for me, my husband said, like, just tell them that you recently got your social security number and that you don't have a credit. And I was like, why do you need to tell them that? I was like, just tell them that you recently got your social security number and that you don't have any credit. Later I realized that it's very important when you start working. But the credit score is a number. It's a certain number, I'm sure you know this, that kind of explains and personifies your financial well-being. So where are you on your financial well-being journey, your financial health journey? What is this report? What does this number means to me? And it's based on different factors that is access to your credit report. So the credit score and the credit report. So this number is very important for your financial health and for your financial journey. And then based on that credit score is based on this credit report. That is basically a little bit more heftier document that you can access to and find, and actually provides a range of information to you for your own financial health journey, but also to the different service providers, your employers, landlords, and every other kind of service, financial institution type of things for anything that you might know regarding what loans do you have, how many credit cards do you have, do you pay your bills on time. So everything is there in your credit report, and based on those information, this credit score is calculated and so like where I am in this scale of my financial health and my financial well-being. Any questions? I'm gonna wait for a second. So one of the things that I really like to do as a nerd is have access to data, because data helps us, especially in our line of work, Jaimie and myself, we deal a lot with data because data sets the trends for us in order to see like how what we are doing with the credit union from the Iowa Credit Union Foundation and Iowa Credit Union League helps the community that we are serving, and how what we are doing is putting our mission in action and making sure that we are really doing the good work. The other thing that is also important is to take a pause and always think like this data is changing. So what are the needs of the community that are serving and how we can fulfill those needs? And we know that Iowa is also changing, and especially what is changing in Iowa is the demographics. I'm a living, walking proof of the changing of the Iowa demographic as well. And it is, the data show us that by 2045, the minority population in Iowa is going to double. It already is, when we look at the census from 2010 and census in 2020, Iowa growth in population is 4.5%. And most of those growth is reflected within minority communities. So communities are changing, the needs of our communities are changing, and it's always good to look at those data and see like how we can make sure that we respond to the needs that are coming from the communities, environment that is changing, and how to adopt our initiatives, programs, services, and how we can adopt even our own educational programs, or what we are offering in educational programs in order to meet the needs, because our students are coming from the different backgrounds. But it's always good to start with the data, because when I was researching a lot about the credit cards lately and the scores, I run across some of the credit facts, and it says that in this first bullet number that says what is the collectively hold of the Americans credit card is already old. Let me tell you, this is quarter 4 of 2022. Yesterday I read a report that it says it's all-time high. So in last quarter of 2022, it was $866 million. Yesterday it was $1 trillion. Sorry? Yes. So and the average American house on the credit card a little bit over $5,000 in debt. When we look at our credit scores, and we look at who has the best credit score among the generation of Americans, they say the silent generation, those born before 1946. So we are my in-laws, my parents' grandmothers and grandfathers, they have the best credit score. They still write the checks, they send the checks every birthday, things like that. They don't use the gift cards, they don't use the Venmo, they still write the checks. They have the best credit score, so they have the discipline, they like old school approach to building credit and their financial health and well-being. And then those born after 1996, which is Generation Z, and I know we have them in the room as well, they have the lowest credit score so far among the Americans. So their average is around 634 points. And I'm going to show you on the next slide what those ranges actually mean. So you will see that the picture doesn't necessarily reflect the points that are on the right-hand side. But these are the ranges among the credit scores that are that reflect that financial health of individuals in from being in a bad scale, in red, as we like to say, and then being on a better and good scale, reaching from the green to the different shades of, reaching to the yellow to the different shades of green. So we can calculate the credit score as poor, that that is in the range of 300, 500 something, fair, good, very good, and excellent.
And I think what's helpful about these two different scores here that we don't have labeled, but is important, I think, as educators, because young people don't realize this. Where you pull your credit may look a little different. So I know, in the lending space with credit unions, we've talked to members who said, oh, well, I went online and I pulled my credit score was 720, but then I went to my credit union for a loan and they said my score was only 710. It's really good for our students to know that depending on where you pull your credit is going to affect what that score looks like. Because there are different credit reporting bureaus and agencies.
And we're going to talk about that in a second, but I'm going to stop here and share my screen because we have a game for you. So this is the session. Jaimie and I decided that, how at the beginning of every session of every lecture, and especially you in school would say, please silence and put away your cell phones. So now I'm asking you to pull up your cell phones, use your cell phones, because we are going to play a game. Yes, it's very unusual, I know. We are going to play a game, and I need to use your cell phones because this is a small game of trivia that we prepared for all of you. On Kahoots, and I'm going to give you instructions in just a second. Hopefully the internet will start its place. So I'm going to ask you either to scan the QR code that is on the screen, or to go to the this is very difficult, www.kahoot.it and enter this PIN number. Yes. Give yourself a name. Yes. You can change the monikers. I like to be a unicorn always. I'm going to wait for everyone to join us.
So the monocle is awesome.
Yes. Do you use this in a classroom, Kahoots? Yeah. Super fun. Does anyone have troubles joining? Do you need help? We have a unicorn. Is everyone in? Yes, awesome. So we have 9 questions for you. You will see on your screens to type the answer. The question will be on the screen in front of you, but not necessarily on your phone. The correct answer counts, but also what counts as well is how fast you answer. So be prepared. How fast and correct answer. So I'm going to start this. I'm going to read the question aloud. You will see it on your screen, and then on the screen in front of you, but the answer on your phone. Are you ready? Awesome. So the first question is, select which of the following can influence your credit score. Getting divorced, having a credit application denied, a drop in salary, or all of the above. Have the colors on your okay. Mike. Awesome. Let's go. Yes. All of the above. Sorry. Jaimie, help. I'm so excited. You have more than one credit score. Is it true or false? It is true. You have more than one credit score. And Jaimie just explained that maybe a minute ago.
Brownie points, what are the 2 reporting agencies? There are 3. Yep, that's right. Thank you. What are the reporting agencies?
Awesome. Mike is still in the lead. Which of the following may use credit scores when deciding on an individual's financial journey? lenders, landlords, employers, all of them are using our accessing your credit scores when deciding on your loan applications, even employment, or others. Mike is still in the lead. This is awesome. Okay, the next one. Which of the following does a credit score mainly indicate? The correct answer is risk of not paying the loan. So that's that number, on which scale you are, and which type of red, yellow, or different shades of green. Where is your, how we say it, Jaimie, risk adverse or risk?
Right, your likelihood to repay the loan.
Mike is in the lead, Danielle is very close behind. Let's go. True or false? Checking your own credit score or credit report will hurt your credit. True or false? It is false. Jaimie will talk a little bit later about the hard pull and soft pull of the credit reports, but you can check your credit score without consequences on your. My God, Danielle is on fire. Took over the lead. Okay, sixth one. What is the average credit score for Americans in 2022? This is Experian data. The correct one is 714. Are you surprised?
We've had more discretionary income lately.
And if you look at our population, the boomers and the,
I'm so sorry if I'm gonna mispronounce this, but Fitz or Five?
Fizz, it's a nickname, it's okay.
Okay, good job. Okay, we have a slider now, so you need to slide to get the answer. So it says the average home buyer has a credit score of, what do you think? It did play a little bit with our emotions here, like pulling the strings with the slider, but it's 753.
and this is like recent data, so considering the higher interest rates, higher credit scores are probably taking mortgages, whereas lower credit scores may be holding off because the interest rate environment.
Okay. Fitz, good job. 754, did you say?
56.
56, good. So having multiple long-term lines of credit, such as student loans or a mortgage, will do what? Definitely gives you a headache, but apart from that. That's correct. Improve your credit score. Jaimie will talk a little bit about that as well. Fitz is on fire. Streak of 8. And the last question. Late payments can impact your credit score. That is true. Let us see our board, podium. Grace, we have a, Danielle is in third place. Where's Danielle? Danielle, yes. Amazing. The second is CBL. Yes, second place. Then we have Fitz in the first place. This is just a small, guys, this is go in the first place. Right? Yep. Small goodies from the Iowa Credit Union Foundation and Iowa Credit Union League. You will find a lot of interesting stuff in those small bags, both educational and I'm gonna stop it because the no matter how fun it is. Was that fun? Did you enjoy it? Did you learn a lot? Awesome. I did a lot. I always, when I do this type of trivia question, I feel like I learned a lot. Any questions at this point for either me and Jaimie before I just give you a little bit more context and Jaimie will take over? So when we talk about the credit scores, it's always like, okay, how they do calculate this? What they calculate, what they find in our credit report. So what are the factors that are typically considered when they are calculating our credit scores? So are we paying our bills on time? My husband is a stickler for paying bills on time. I might like, oh, I will do it tomorrow. No, you will do it today. Today's the deadline. You want to do it. Okay. That's one thing to do with that. Your current unpaid debt. So what is the amount of debt that you have and how many debt do you have? It's like, is it a credit card debt? Do you have student loans? Do you have a car loan? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have any other debt? What type of loan accounts do you have? I just named several ones. How long do you have those loans open? So if we do pay our student loan debt, do you want to pay them through the period of 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, or are you going to take them forever with you? How much of your available credit you are using as well is one of the things that is considered when calculating your credit score, that number that speaks about your financial health. What are the new applications for credit that you are having? Do you have a mortgage loan and you want to take a second car loan, or how many others loans do you have in that? And then, of course, all those information that are collected through your financial journey. Did you have any collections? Did you have any filed bankruptcies? Did you have any foreclosure on your home or the condo or anything related to that? So that is something that is calculated. So when they're kind of like, what is in that document that we call credit report and how we get to that number, for us personally, these are the factors that can contribute to all of that.
How long does the student have to have a credit open before it would show up on a credit score? Is there like a minimum amount of months or?
That's a great question. My understanding, because we also do like credit unions across the state, I'm sure banks do this too. We do credit builder programs.
Sure.
And generally you need a minimum of 6 months of payment history for it to actually start to build credit or repair credit. That's on the low end.
All right.
You're not going to see really the positive efforts of that labor until more like 9 to 12 months.
Great.
So you kind of have to have that long-term approach.
Right, and that's, as a teacher, that's what I try to, you want to build this before you actually need it.
Yep, and the downside is to harm your credit, it can just take 1 or 2 months to have your credit. So.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Do we have a question from Mike?
Excuse me. I'm just curious, being a co-student, like my daughter has a loan, and my credit loan impacts my credit score.
Yes, without a doubt. We talked about this a little bit during the student loan conversation this morning. Many parents, especially following the financial crisis, in order to fund their students' education, and many of you that may have experienced this as well, signed up for the Parent Plus loans. Really negatively affected, you look at the data collectively, negatively affected the parent and the student in a lot of ways, because once those repayments started, it now went on to the student. And so there is a financial factor that you have to consider in how that affects both the parents and the students if there's a co-signer situation. And that applies to credit cards. So my husband took out a credit card at Lowe's and put me on the card and didn't realize that it also affected my credit. So you learn these things.
Hey, I have a question in relation to that. That's what I was texting, sorry. My daughter's in the process of leaving her husband. She has 3 kids. He's decided he's going to go back to Europe, and my guess is he's going to dodge all of their debt, unfortunately. He has credit cards, but as long as her name's not attached to them, she's fine, right?
So it's a good question, and we are not attorneys, but I would highly encourage her to get a bankruptcy attorney or to talk to one, because the state of Iowa, there's a lot of...
She's not in the state.
Oh, she's not
in Texas, but she's moving back to Iowa.
Yeah, it really depends on the state's laws, because because I know in Iowa, for example, it's a no-fault state, so debt accumulated during a marriage is generally split 50-50. Now, that is not legal advice, that's just based on what we've experienced in the credit
Social
union.
Security number's not even connected to it.
Yeah.
So there's no way that it would ping
Yep, it's
on our
in
credit report.
generally it's any debt collected in the marriage, and so it's possible those creditors could potentially.
But if you ran her credit report in a credit union, and her social security number's not connected to it.
It probably wouldn't come up, but
Right.
the debt collectors, they are going to.
If they still would have a credit, they still
They
would
have the
a social
home
security number.
address, and he
When
would
I'm
have.
selling their house, so.
Okay, well, and who knows? I would say definitely encourage
I
her
told her
to-
she needs to file for legal separation,
Yeah.
so she gets.
Yeah,
Especially
definitely.
if they leave in the country.
We do, and I'm looking at Katie Averill, who is our superintendent of the Iowa Credit
Oh.
Division and also used to work for a credit union, but we hear horror stories
Oh
at
my gosh,
credit
I'm just
unions
freaked out about it.
about, a home was purchased during a marriage and then there was a divorce, but the other spouse retained the property, and unfortunately, that then can affect the other person's. Yep.
Just like
It's worth talking to legal experts about that. Yep.
And information in this situation is all that it's need to feel empowered to make a decision. So just
She needs
full
some-
information that you will gain through your
Like-
journey.
Because she has not any money.
Yeah.
And she's gonna say, Mom, and he won't give her any money. And it's just a bad situation.
Fingers crossed. Good luck with everything.
Yeah.
The one last thing that I wanted to make sure that I feel obliged as someone with living experience to pass this on all of you. I already said how our environment is changing and how your classroom may look different, and kids that you are teaching in your classroom, that the English might not be their first language, like it's not mine. And I consider myself an educated person, and I do speak English fluently on a good days, and not so good on other days. But when I started living here, and I'm very privileged immigrant, I decided to be here, a very hallmarky reason to cross the ocean and marry my husband and come here very on my own. And I have a very good starting point. Yet when I went for the first time, like, okay, I need to open the credit card, to get a credit card, I couldn't get it. So I needed to get it with my husband, and I was like, wait, I'm independent, strong woman, I want my own credit card, I don't need my husband on my credit card to get like the credit card. It's like, your credit is very thin, you're invisible, we don't have data for you. So just consider when you're, so I was in this is statistic from 2015, but if this, we don't have any from a recent number from the CFPB, but if you do, I will be in this statistic. Like, I'm here legally, I wanted to be here, I have a great job, I'm building this life here, I'm living my American dream, but for the state, United States of America credit union, I'm invisible. Because I don't have they don't have enough information on me from the last 3 years in order to build a credit. Think about your communities, think about students you have in your classroom, think about how they have different experiences and they might living through these experiences. Even if they are not belonging to the recent immigrants or the minority communities, they might be in the United States for the beginning of their lives, but they didn't have that good head start, or they didn't have that education or talk in their own houses and households in order to start building their credit. Also, one of the things that we are also very mindful when we are doing our work is like how we are approaching this subject. Maybe the kids in your classroom that are sitting, they're the first generation immigrants, and they are the ones who are going home and tell their parents what to do. They are the ones who are going to the credit union or the bank or the other financial institution and translates for their parents in order to do. That's their first interaction with money. It's very emotional. It kind of takes them through life, how they build that relationship with money as well. Back home where I come from, we don't talk about the money. That's like a source of shame. Here, my husband, first thing is like, oh, we need to talk about money. No, we do not. No, we do not. We do not talk about the money. It's an honest conversation, and empowering your students to think from all the angles and making sure that what you're telling them might be on a different levels, but make sure that it's all inclusive and that sometimes you need to spend a little bit more time with one rather than others in order to explain what this means to them and put them in their context and put yourselves in their shoes. Because these can change their lives and can definitely support their financial well-being. Sorry, Jaimie.
Oh, no. All right, so Emma talked about some fun facts and the financial inclusion aspect of credit, because there are many folks, as you can see here, who are left out of credit. So when we're thinking about the classroom, thinking about students, thinking about our own lives and our families, we put together just some suggestions. How do I get and keep a good credit score? It seems obvious. Pay your loans on time, every time. Don't close your credit limit. So if you have applied for a credit card but you're no longer using it, seems like, oh, I might as well close it. Keep that credit line open generally, because the amount of open unused credit has a positive influence on your credit score. A long history, so going back to how long does it take to build credit, the longer your history generally, the more that is helpful.
So along the keeping your credit cards open. So I've made mistakes in my past, right? When I turned 18, oh my God, did I make mistakes? So I've done, yeah, there's a reason why I knew so much about credit. So from my own research, I've found that like, if you have a credit card and it's open and you don't use it, it still shows up on your credit report as pays as agreed, right? And then it says yes each month, right? But then I've also had people tell me that you have to use that credit card in order to build your credit.
Great question.
Which one is it?
Yes.
Because I can open up a credit card,
Yes.
it's going to say pays as agreed, but how do
Great
they know?
question. And we'll kind of get into this, but there is an actual percentage of your total credit limit that you do want to be utilizing to maintain a strong credit. Are there any Dave Ramsey folks in the room? Okay, so Dave Ramsey is awesome in the sense that he teaches families, people, how to manage money. The flip side to that is that a lot of folks that have gone down the Dave Ramsey route have realized, oh, I can live completely debt-free, but then if I don't have credit, what do I lack access to? Loans. And in our environment, in order to purchase a home, in order to get a car to go to work, you probably are going to need a loan. And so there is a credit utilization recommendation of about 30% of your total credit limit. Now that's not just a credit card. That's thinking holistically about your total credit environment. You know, you want to maintain about 30% usage. You want to pay it off every month, but that shows back to the credit bureau agencies that this person is, you know, trustworthy in quotation marks. I find the whole modeling to be a little bit, you know, old-fashioned. I think they're actually working on a lot of fintech agencies are actually working on how do we look at credit differently outside of just the traditional models of repayment. So. And we'll talk about this, but fact-checking credit reports, this is a big part of the work that we do on the foundation side with credit unions, is actually coaching credit unions how to work with members and looking for those errors in credit reports, because that can make a dramatic impact in your credit score. Okay, what to keep in mind when building credit? The impact of carrying a credit card balance. So going back to that percentage of how much you should have, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Other people's behavior. So if you have a credit card, if you have a mortgage, if you have a loan, and there is a co-signer on it, and for whatever reason, one or both of you is maybe not making those on-time payments, even though the other person is trying to really manage their money, that does have a negative impact on your credit score. Tell a quick story, going back to relationships and how relationships can affect credit scores. Good friend had gone through a divorce. They had purchased a home together. They did in Iowa what's called a quick claim deed. And what that means is that their name was taken off the deed of the home. However, the other person retained the mortgage, retained the loan. In the state of Iowa, a mortgage, what does mortgage mean? I know Emma knows this because of her language skills. Anyone know what mortgage means? Is it Latin, Emma? Can you tell us?
Yeah, it's like
till death. Till death. A mortgage literally means till death. A divorce does not stop your legal obligation on that loan until the home is sold. And so, very good friend, she had bought this house when she was right out of college, real young, and thought they did the quitclaim deed. Her husband stopped making, or ex-husband stopped making the mortgage payments. Her credit score went from 750 to nothing. Because if you have, what is it? Kate, you probably know better, but just a couple months of not paying your mortgage can make a dramatic impact on your credit score. Let's see, soft pulls versus hard pull. Anyone know the difference? There's some like financial coaches in the room, so you guys know.
The soft pull is when you look at your own credit score, you can look at your own credit report or score as many times as you want or report, and it just counts it as a soft pull. A hard pull is when a financial institution pulls your credit report.
Absolutely. You can get soft pulls at a financial institution for a mortgage for pre-approval. So if you heard the quote pre-approval, please know, and this is good for your students too, if you're, oh, I got a pre-approval for $100,000 for this car, I'm so excited. That doesn't mean anything, okay? That means that you've given a good green light, potentially, to maybe the dealership or maybe the realtor that you can afford a home. But until your credit is pulled with a hard pull, that is not gospel, for lack of a better word. So yes, so that hard pull does impact your credit. There is a maximum number of times in 1 year that you should ideally, based on what the credit bureaus have shared, that you should ideally pull your credit. And I'm just curious, how many? Okay, 2, we have 2. Any other numbers? How many hard pulls in a year? So what they recommend is no more than 6. And at 6, that is dramatically lowering your credit. And so I think 2 to 3 is kind of, you think about applying for credit in your own life. If a lender kind of looks at your credit report and they're seeing, gosh, they're really applying for a lot of credit, what does that tell you about that person? So it's one of those things, again, it's psychological. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of it because we all have stories, we all have backpacks we carry, but it does negatively impact your credit to do those hard pulls. So good for folks to be aware. Okay, let's see here. How long does it take a hard pull to roll off your credit report? Any ideas? So all those credit pulls, Victoria's Secret credit card was all the rage when I was in college.
It takes 2 years for a hard pull.
That's right. That is right, 2 years. All right, what not to do while working to build credit. So again, going back to the Dave Ramsey theories and whatnot, if you do not establish credit, it is very difficult to participate in the traditional model of financial well-being that we've established here in the United States. In working with the immigrant community, because we do that quite a bit in our credit union industry, that is one of the really big challenges, is why would I take out a loan? Why would I take out credit? And the challenge is that if you don't start to establish that credit, you cannot buy a home. And buying a home is based on the data and the research, it is the fastest way to build wealth. Equity in a home is the type of intergenerational wealth. So families that have owned homes, so my grandparents owned their own home, my great-grandparents owned their own home. When you have 3 generations of home ownership, the wealth disparity is dramatically different than if you do not. So building a home is the fastest way to prosperity in the United States, or owning a home is the fastest way to prosperity in the United States. So it does matter. Late payments, we've talked about this. Late payments stay on your credit report for quite a while, a bit longer than the 2 years. Any ideas how long late payments stay on your credit report?
Maybe
7 years, that's right. That is also inclusive of bankruptcy and foreclosure. And actually, sometimes those stay on your credit report for more like 10 years. So really, really good to know that if you miss a payment, especially on a mortgage, it will affect your credit for almost a decade. Okay, so credit utilization, we talked about this. So, easy math, you have, let's just say $100,000 in lines of credit. That may include your student loans, that may include credit card utilization, maybe a HELOC. You want to stay within that 30%, so no more than $30,000. That, once you start to tip more toward 50% credit utilization or 60%, there will be an impact to the credit. And then, yes, we talked about canceling old credit accounts. So there's a great tool on most credit card products that you can actually make your card still open but inactive in the sense that you will avoid fraud. So there's a lot of fraud out there with credit and debit accounts. You can turn the card off typically. So contact your financial institution to learn how to do that. But that's what my husband and I do. We actually, the credit cards that we don't utilize, we turn them off so that we can avoid fraud.
So I've taught this stuff a while. My wife and I built a house 3 years ago. I opened a credit card at Lowe's. I didn't even think about it, but Lowe's, I got the percentage off at Lowe's. But I used a lot of that credit. I went way over the 30%. But I was always able to pay it off because I wanted the discount.
Yep.
I think it'd be my credit scores. Do you know how long using too much credit stays on your credit?
You know, that's a good question. The thing is if you're making on-time payments, it will recover a lot quicker. So I think you'll notice, and I would stay on top of it. You know, as far as checking it, we'll show you some ways to check your credit regularly. But if you're making on-time payments and working toward that, you will start to see that dramatically go up. Or gradually, excuse me, not dramatically, gradually go up.
I believe that only affects the utilization part of it, and so I believe if you pay off the next month, you'll see it go back down.
Yes,
Basically,
that's true.
Your
Yep.
utilization each month. So if
Yep.
you use above the 30%, your credit score will go down, but once you pay it off next month, it'll go back up.
Yeah, great point. My husband and I are redoing our kitchen right now. Very same thing. We took out a credit card so we could get a deal on the cost of what we were purchasing. And yeah, saw a little blurb there on my credit, but you know, we paid it off right away, and we know it'll go back up the next month. So great question. They do report monthly, I believe, and Katie, you might know that better. Okay, I believe it's monthly, but you know, again, and we'll talk about this. They are not always accurate in how they report back to the reporting agencies. Okay, how to build credit for a young person, since we all work with young people. Okay, so this is something that I had to learn myself, consumer debt, which, you know, going back to that Victoria's Secret's credit card that everyone needed when I was in college, versus long-term debt. And actually, student loans are considered more of a positive long-term debt, so is a mortgage. Consumer debt generally is not treated as kindly in our credit report versus, or credit score versus long-term debt. Long-term debt tells a lender that my worthiness to borrow is stronger because you know, I'm committed till death to make those monthly payments. Hopefully not till death. Utilities. So having a utility in your name is reported back to credit bureaus, so that can positively impact that. Rent, sometimes, not always, but sometimes landlords will report rent back to credit bureaus. And then, you know, we've got these other things here, student credit cards. Some credit unions and banks have secured cards, authorized user of cards, so having a credit card that mom and dad have and having, you know, your child on that credit card can help them build credit, but I always say that's when you gotta have real good communication skills, parents and children around, you know, how we manage that, because we've seen that, you know, maybe go the other way for parents too. And work history. Work history does positively impact your credit report as well. So credit scores, pros and cons. I mean, I think, how are we doing on time? Are we getting close here? Oh yeah. So I'm going to skip through this one, but the slides I believe will be available. But generally, the higher the credit score, the lower the interest rate on loans, and the more likely you are to actually qualify for this. Common credit report errors. So I encourage everyone at least once a year to go through and actually pull your free credit report. A law passed, gosh, a couple years ago, you all may know this better than me, that we can get a full credit report free, no cost to ourselves. So this is the way, these are annualcreditreport.com is how you can get that. It is the most detailed version of your credit report. I also use these apps. I love all of these apps. You may have some of your favorites as well. I'm a big fan of Credit Karma. Each of these has a free option and then they have a paid option. But none of them are as detailed as the annualcreditreport.com. So we, with our financial coaches, have them pull a full credit report for themselves and really go through it in detail and then compare it to this. And there's always a difference. There's always a difference. So this is good to monitor on a regular basis. These are, you know, I would say daily, monthly tools. This is the deep dive, and really encourage folks to not fail to pull their full credit report at least once a year to make sure that there are no errors. My husband and I have different last names and found several errors on our credit report. It does take a bit to actually address those, but many credit unions have trained financial coaches and can actually help members navigate how do I resolve those issues with the credit bureaus. But you have a right to do that. So I had to kind of walk through those last ones. Is there any questions or anything that I may have missed?
Bureaus will look at the purpose for a credit card as like last chance credit or second chance credit.
Second chance credit, that's a good question.
And that's what I was telling the students, I don't know, you know, unless
Yeah.
it's like a Menards or Lowe's card,
Yeah.
you need it for reasons, but.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it's looked at like consumer debt, which,
Which is like a Visa or MasterCard.
yeah, they label it as kind of short-term consumer debt. And so generally speaking, any credit card is going to fall under kind of that consumer debt. The long-term debt is what the credit score will positively, it'll be more positive for the long-term debt.
So it doesn't matter anymore.
I think I think credit cards are probably all treated the same, but I'm
A lot of
scared
those
by
small
that.
ones are,
That's
are
really
Visa or
Yeah.
MasterCard.
Yeah,
Oh.
yes, yep. Other trends that we're seeing, and I know my high school age brothers have fallen prey to this, is the buy now, pay now. Like when you buy
Yes.
online, you can now finance it directly through, wherever. I think Amazon is starting to offer some of these things, and that's a little scary that young people can get that pleasure, trigger happy, I'm going to buy this now and put it on layaway. It's not really layaway because there's interest, but yeah, just another thing to look out for. Yeah.
You mentioned how, the rest of it now, you have to pretty much have a credit score in order to get out. How long has it been like that? Was it how long ago?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't have an answer for that. Just talking with my own family and my grandparents, interest rates were 16% when they purchased their home, so you had to save every penny. That's a really good question, and I'm not sure.
I'm not a history nerd. I can offer just a small explanation that I found. The credit score that we know today, that how we calculate it's in use since, you won't believe it, but it's 1989. But credit score as such was introduced somewhere in the 50s. There is an amazing Times article that I read about the history of the credit score in the United States, and it came after World War. Growth of the United States as the economic power in the world, it just kind of grew that individual wealth as well. But it's amazing. If you reach out to me via email, I'm happy to share that article with you. But the way how we calculate it down, the way how we know it, it's 1989.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.